Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, you can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Please help us grow by subscribing or sharing the Newsa-Cast with friends, or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Now let's get this show on the road.
There's a difference between guiding and fishing. Like, if I'm guiding, I would never do that. But if I'm fishing with you, I'm going to catch all of them in front of you. I'm being set up right now by Tops.
Welcome to the Newsa-Cast. What is a Newsa-Cast? It's where we bring local folk stories to life through conversation.
Welcome to this journey that we're on. We're in 4 weeks now, episode 4. Not that I'm shocked that we've made it this far, but I'm shocked that it's going as smoothly as it is right now, Joe.
Yeah, we're rolling right along, Tosh. Indeed, we are. It's a fly fishing episode, Tosh. Can you believe that?
Yeah, this one's going to be a little bit different for the listeners. We kind of looked at some of your more traditional sports over the last 3 weeks, but we're going to take a look at the outdoors because, you know, really when you think about sports, Wisconsin has a huge culture of hunting and fishing. That is a major economic boost when you look at places like Shields and Fleet Farm and Dick's Sporting Goods. So this is one to hit the masses, so to speak, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's culture, definitely, for a lot of people, heritage. People grow up with deer hunting, duck hunting, pheasant hunting, you name it, just being outdoors. It doesn't even necessarily have to be hunting. You and I have done our fair share of, backpacking trips and kayaking, canoeing, all that kind of stuff. So it's just the outdoors, and as we'll find out in this episode, and it literally blew my mind. I had no idea that the high schools had the outdoor clubs like they did. And these kids getting exposed to duck hunting, turkey hunting, whatever, almost anything that they want available to them right at the high school to go give it a shot. And that's how you start building up a love of all of the outdoors and
a love of the outdoors and a appreciation for what we have and something that we can pass on to generation after generation, our kids, our grandkids. And, like the old saying is, we don't own this land. We're only borrowing it from our grandkids. And this brings that to light as we look into this outdoor episode, as we like to call it here.
Looking back, we had a lot of fun doing these interviews. We'll talk a little bit later, but going up to Tim's fly fishing shop up in Pere. Well, what an afternoon that was. But you're absolutely right. It goes even beyond that shop. It's about protecting the land. And Tim talks a lot about the Menomonie River and the coalition there to protect fresh water. It's more than the outdoors. You're right. It's protecting the land. It's protecting the next generation.
Yeah. And we're going to hear about that and Tim's passion for it as well. And Ryan's passion for it with the outdoor club and passion from the Menomonie River Coalition as well. What a great organization trying to make sure that river, that body of water stays there and is protected for generations to come. I'm really looking forward to people getting a glimpse at these two groups and to learn a little bit more about the world around them and how we can protect it and continue to protect it.
Absolutely. And in the spirit of the Red Smith Banquet, it was, the Red Smith All Sports Award Banquet. It's important that the Newsa-Cast touches all sports. So this is definitely a new sport for us. And I had so much fun with this, and I learned a ton. All right, Tosh, we have a very special interview coming up. One, like I said in the opening, I had no idea this was going on in the school system, and it is really, really cool. I don't know how else to say it, but I'm going to let you do the introduction. Mr. Marx is an incredible guy, an incredible program, and he runs an outdoor program at Appleton East. And come to find out, most of the high schools have similar programs.
Yeah, you know what? It's a great opportunity. We always are looking, how can we get kids to feel good about being in school and want to come to school, because the more they're in school, the more engaged they are and the better they're going to do. Ryan Marx started this outdoor club. I teach with Ryan at Appleton East, and it's a great opportunity for kids who maybe don't do the sports or the theater or the clubs, but now they have a club that they can be passionate about because they're passionate about something that's been handed down from their family, from their parents, from their grandparents. And, we're talking about renting decoys and fishing equipment, and all the way to, you're going to find out that there is actually a state tournament for ice fishing. So this is a great interview with Mr. Marx, and he's a great guy and doing some amazing things to really promote the environment and promote the world around us. Listeners, we're here with Ryan Marx, and Ryan Marx is a teacher at Appleton East. If you don't know him, you're going to know him after this episode. He's a huge amount of energy and a blast to talk with. We're really excited because he is going to talk about the outdoor club at Appleton East. And for those of you who don't know, outdoor clubs are growing throughout the state of Wisconsin. There's even a state fishing tournament, which you're going to hear about as well. And so we're going to get the whole story about how the club started at Appleton East. And we're really excited for you to hear about the Appleton East Scott Fisher Outdoor Club and what it's all about.
All right. Well, thank you.
Could you tell us, Ryan, just a little bit about yourself and your background with hunting and fishing and growing up and things like that?
Yeah, I actually, did not hunt that much as a child. My dad was disabled from Vietnam, so he really wasn't into hunting. I didn't, hunt very often as a youngster because I said my dad was disabled from Vietnam War. But then as I got older, I got, a little bit more involved into it. And I found just a passion for, being outside. And I always was into fishing. And then, the older I got, the more I loved, spending time outdoors and, getting more involved in things and trying to get my kids involved. And then obviously with trying to get students involved. But, the Corey Fisher Outdoor Club started with a former alumni that from Appleton East that passed away, and his family wanted to give back to the community, so they gave us some money to be able to start this club. And we have this shed at really a garage at Appleton East that students are able to check out things to be able to go hunting, go fishing. We have a muskie club that, people can rent out muskie rods. We have people that can rent out, decoys. In fact, just this past Sunday, 4 students rented out, they just not rent, but they just take out, pigeon decoys, go pigeon hunting. It's just such an awesome thing to get, students involved in, just outdoor activities that are just, really exciting to see, them get out and, do things outside.
Ryan, what year was the outdoor club started?
Well, the fishing team that's a separate thing that started quite a while ago, 2012 maybe. But the Corey Fisher Outdoor Club, we really, COVID kind of put a damper on that. So really since COVID, it's been, much better with being able to get students out, outside, hunting and fishing.
No, absolutely. Did you know Corey at all? What kind of guy was he?
Yeah, he was awesome. And I went to school with his brother, Dave, and, now I'm, very good friends with and I have been friends with their family, but their dad, him and I, and obviously, it's something special for him, just knowing that, Corey's, legacy and his, passion for hunting and fishing is living on through other students at Appleton East.
What an incredible gift, really. I mean, like you had said earlier, I mean, it turns into a lifelong passion.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's great. I mean, there are so many students that have never tried, either, could be duck hunting, could be goose hunting, this spring we had, 5 new students that check out turkey blinds and, go turkey hunting. So, some people don't have the means for could be equipment, could be, blinds, some of that stuff is super, super expensive, especially waterfowl hunting. It's very expensive. Most people just can't go out and buy, a bunch of decoys and, say they want to go hunting.
Sure. So do they have a guide then that goes with them, or, kids that want to try turkey hunting for the first time? How does the club work?
Yeah, we have a few, people they're volunteers, and we're always looking for more. And a few of, like myself and a few other parents have, take kids out. A few people from, a couple muskie clubs that, will say, hey, I have an opening on the boat. Is there any way I can, do you have anyone that's interested? We'll send a message out, and then, people go out there, or even a couple people have gone salmon fishing with, the same thing. So say, hey, you have anyone that's interested?
Do you use your words of encouragement similar to the football field with the kids?
Yeah. It's a little easier to get people to go out hunting and fishing.
I being a science teacher and teaching with you, Ryan, we've always talked about that kids don't get outside enough anymore. It's not like it used to be where, you were outside all day, just doing whatever, playing pickup baseball or looking at stuff. Do you see with this club, your numbers have grown in the last couple of years?
And this from, being there, we have strong group of alumni that are giving back now, that are, the ones that are taking out students that we have now to go out fishing. And some of them, the alumni that are taking out, kids, could be duck hunting, could be goose hunting. So that's the thing that I love, is they're, seeing it grow is important to them. And then they're trying to give back to, students, because they know what position that they are in. And, especially when it comes to certain hunting things, safety is obviously first. So it's not like I can take, a ton of kids out, duck hunting at the same time. So, but that's, pretty awesome. And I do see it, more and more kids, that are interested. And I wish more kids would actually try it out, because, and everyone knows, so many students and some of my kids, myself, even though they love to hunt and fish, I feel that they're, addicted to their cell phones. And so many, students, they could sit on their phone all day long, or, stream some type of show without ever getting outside. But it's just a great opportunity to get, students involved in, something that, they might not have that opportunity if they don't have a dad that does it, or maybe an uncle that does it.
I agree with you. And, when we think about the cell phone and having this like mini computer in our hand, these kids have hunting games and they have fishing games. And every time they shoot a buck, or another time a fish, as soon as they cast out. So when they go out and sit outside, they might not see an animal. They might not catch a fish. And that turns some of those kids off, because they're so used to that instant gratification.
100%. And some of them, especially certain type of hunting, especially deer hunting, is so much harder, because some people just, they can't sit there, and they don't have that patience to be able to wait and wait and wait. At least if you're out goose hunting, for sure, something you can be talking to your buddies and stuff like that. So, that's a little bit easier, but, to have someone just say they're going to go sit out deer hunting and maybe not see anything, that's pretty tough.
So you also talked about forming some relationships with some of the businesses in the area. What are some of the businesses that really are behind you in the outdoor club?
The Real Shot has been, great, right away. Like I said, the couple, muskie clubs, and we get, obviously the Corey Fisher family that, donated money, and we get, some other donations here, Shields, once in a while give some, gift cards. And then, sometimes we get, people that do hear about it and say they are done, don't really have the drive to go hunting anymore. So then they'll call up and ask if, do you have a need for any of these decoys, or could be some, fishing tackle or things like that. So that definitely, helps out.
Some of the national companies also give you discounts.
Yeah, we get a pretty good deal, especially through the, WIFA, the state, fishing. There's quite a few discounts, especially for fishing equipment that we get. And then we get, some of the other, Lucky Duck and some of the other ones that, give us a discount too, which is obviously huge.
Yeah. And like you said, I think, I don't think people realize the financial need for some of the students that we have in high school. This is an opportunity for them to get out and, like we said, to enjoy something for the rest of their lives.
And I think that's the thing that I, really, really love is that, something so easy as, you give a kid a fishing pole and something that they can enjoy and you're into, and, your friends into, fly fishing. I mean, you sit in a, river, trying to catch trout, and it's just so beautiful, so peaceful. And, it's not always about, what you catch or what you, shoot. It's just about, enjoying nature and trying to get people to be, like we say, stewards of the land, to try to, take care of that. And that's another thing that, all these fishing coaches, especially, Chris Jones and Nina and, the Papishes at, Appleton North, they're, trying to make kids to be stewards and pick up after themselves. And that that's so important also to, obviously take care of our environment.
Ryan, you mentioned some of the high school teams. I mean, it gets kind of competitive in these clubs, doesn't it?
Oh, it really does get competitive. And it's getting harder and harder because, some of the schools, they have in people that do fish a lot, they have these live scopes, super expensive. I mean, we're talking, $3,000 a piece. And, some of the schools have, 8, 9 of them. And, it's not a level playing field anymore compared to what it used to be before. I mean, everyone, they would have, a little bit better equipment, but these things are game changers.
So how does the tournament work, a high school tournament?
There's some of them that are virtual, but you can fish any body of water, any public body of water. But like there's a lot of tournaments that, they'll have a specific, lake or a couple lakes and certain boundaries you have. And then you got to catch, let's just say, 5, your top 5 northern, your top 5 bass, your top 5, walleye. And then you have a stringer of panfish, could be 15 panfish. And then it's all done on this app called Fish Donkey. And, it's really well done. The people that, organize it they're fantastic. And that thing is just getting bigger and bigger. We were one of the first teams to join, and, I think there might've been 20 some teams. Now there's, I believe, over 140 some, maybe 160.
Wow.
And those are high school teams?
Yeah.
Wow.
Where is the tournament in 2024?
It should be coming out real quick. The board meeting is this week, so I'm assuming that it'll come out sometime soon.
What are your numbers like for the outdoor club? I know we have our at East, we have our days where we can have kids come in. What are your consistent numbers as far as your outdoor club right now?
I probably have a lot more sign up for it than actually, participate in a lot of the events. But, right when I have the sign up, last year was like 57 students, signed up. And then probably a good consistent 25, 26, will, come to meetings and come to the events.
That's awesome. It's a great opportunity for kids. And, like we said before, this is a chance for them to get excited about something in their school that they might not have anything else that brings them in. So that's awesome. What are some size-wise, how does your club compare to some of the other clubs in the state?
Ours is pretty decent. There's some that are absolutely huge, and some of them, like Nina, they start in middle school, so they have a middle school program, And I believe that they had, could be 80 kids that were in their program. One of the things that I do like is, some schools, they just only want kids that are really good fishermen, or, for me, and Eric, this, I just want, kids to be outside. So if kids, even if their students have never ever fished before, ice fish, we'll take them, and I provide the tip ups and jig poles for them to get out, and it's a lot of fun. Especially some of them, they learn real quick that it's not something for them. And the biggest thing is if they don't have proper equipment. I've had students come out and do not even have warm boots to stand on the ice all day, so they really don't make it too long.
As these students go out and you're entering in all of these different contests in the state, do these kids get recognized as like?
Yeah, they have this master angler program, which is awesome. So, and it's just a list of all these different species that they have a certain size that they have to be to get the master angler program. If they catch 5 or more of these master angler fish, they get a plaque, and then they have like a competition for whoever's, they call it the master angler of the year, and it's absolutely incredible what some of these students have done. I mean, and we've had some right in our local area that have won it. There's Brendan Papish from Appleton North. There's Riley Hemme from Kaukauna, and they're two of the best fishermen that I know. I mean, they're absolutely amazing.
Do some of the colleges have clubs like this?
There's college teams that have fishing teams, and there's some of them that some of these students actually there's scholarships available for fishing, and a lot of people don't know that, which is pretty awesome.
I know UW Stevens Point. They actually have wild game kitchens in each of the dorms that are just for the students who go out and fish, and they can go and clean their own fish in the wild game and cook it up and right in their dorms. So yeah, as of course, Stevens Point's a little bit different because it's such a natural resource, DNR type of school. That's a great example of that. That's fantastic.
This I never knew this existed. It's so awesome to hear.
It's pretty crazy. It got so big so fast. I mean, a lot of people probably never heard of the WIFA fishing, but it's really, really grown. Did you say it grew since COVID? It definitely has gotten a lot bigger since COVID. And I think that, like in anyone that is an outdoorsman, they know that COVID, they couldn't even keep stuff in stock.
Right.
So many places, so many people. The good thing is, they did get outdoors, which obviously that's a plus.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in the golf world. I mean, golf.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Since COVID, I think bike riding, bicyclists. That's pickleball. I mean, there's been a lot more outdoor sports here, and then maybe that's the one good thing that came out of COVID is maybe that pushed everybody outside and would keep the momentum going. Yeah, that definitely happened for sure. On the page, it says that it says 130 schools and growing, but I thought it was 140 some, but I could be wrong.
I will say, standing in the hallway, I have students come up and show me the fish they catch when they're out, with Ryan and the state tournament and stuff like that. It's just like any other sport or any other activity or club at the school. These kids are recognized and they like to be talk to about the things they're doing as well. Ryan does an amazing job. I mean, I'm not just, blowing steam here. He does a great job, and these kids absolutely love it. It serves such a need. I mean, we both preach the fact that, we need to get kids outside in our classes, teaching earth science and teaching environmental. Ryan does an amazing job with all of these students. That's making a difference. Both of you guys should be commended for sure. It's action speaks louder than words, and you guys are doing it. Yeah, it is awesome. And like Eric said, there are some students that it's the really only thing that they feel involved with at school. You could be fishing club or hunting club or both.
But they find that, and it helps them, kind of give them a little bit of purpose. And like Eric said, we have T-shirts, stuff like that. So just like a regular sports team would have.
For people who might be listening and they might hear this, they contact you if maybe they have equipment that they want to donate or anything like that to the club.
Yeah, that would be great. And we love that, obviously. And it's all appreciated.
All right, Tosh, it's that time again. An old look at new. It's where we take a look back in time in northeastern Wisconsin at some event, some date back in time that we've stumbled across and want to bring that to you. So, Tosh, what's your old look at new?
Well, I'm going to go back to 1996, and I remember this one because I was there at this. And 1996, I'm going to throw a few names at you. Lou Piniella, Alex Rodriguez, Ken Griffey Jr., Dan Wilson competed in what became a home run contest at Timber Rattler Stadium.
I remember that.
They flew in for a game that they're going to do against the Timber Rattlers, a little scrimmage, a little exhibition game for the people around here. And all these people show up and it's raining.
I remember that.
The Timber Rattlers had a young man, 20 years old, by the name of David Aries, which is not the name he goes by now. It's David Ortiz. So Big Papi was here, and we got to see him smash some home runs. Dan Wilson eventually won the home run contest because Ken Griffey Jr. struggled, if you can believe that. But yeah, 1996.
The sweetest swing in baseball,
awesome.
Ken Griffey Jr.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's one of the beautiful things of having minor league baseball teams that just periodically magic like this happens. And I remember that night. I remember going to I was going to go to the game with my dad was still alive at that time. And the weather turned bad, but the Timber Rattlers, they salvaged it. So, the big league club flies in here to the jet, hits a couple of home runs and hops back on the plane and head off to, I don't even know where they played that the next night.
I don't remember either. I don't remember that piece, but I remember that home run contest. I remember sitting up underneath the stadium, and so I wasn't getting wet. But yeah, that was fun. That was a good time.
That stadium has grown since then.
Get out there and see it now. Full view all around the entire outfield.
I know,
so
that's nuts. That's
check it out.
So cool. I want to go down the slide too.
Joe, what do you got?
All right, Tash, I'm going to take us back a little bit at 1965 right here in Appleton, Wisconsin. And I wasn't quite alive back then, but I certainly know that Titletown was being built just a couple of miles to the north of us. I've heard the stories of Max McGee and Paul Horning coming down to the left guard with Fuzzy Thurston. The one thing we didn't have, but it came in 1965 and it changed all our lives. I'm talking about a little store that opened up on West Wisconsin Avenue, July 22nd, 1965. Fleet Farm. Grand opening. Come on now, Tosh.
Fleet Farm. There you go. That ties in. That's a little outdoor club right there.
Oh, we're talking fly fishing. Absolutely. We were talking outdoors this episode. And
really? 1965.
1965, The Mills brothers brought Fleet Farm to Appleton, Wisconsin.
Wow. That is awesome. That's good.
They didn't have the orange silo at the time, but you know what? I bet you the smell was identical, don't you?
The smell of tires. You bet. I think they pumped that in.
Some of my favorite podcasts, I think I've talked to the guys, the Barstool guys down in Chicago. Every Monday they draft something, and one episode was the smells, best or worst smells draft. And for me, I mean, nobody outside of here would know what we're talking about, but the Fleet Farm smell, it's epic.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's the most distinct, and you know where you're at. You're at Fleet Farm. Absolutely.
That's a great one. That's excellent. And now they got their headquarters here in Appleton at the old Secura building.
Yes.
Off of Memorial Drive. So it's excellent.
Fleet Farm, keep on rocking. We love it. And that's our old look at new.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, we have a special interview. A really close friend of mine, Tim Landwehr, who owns the Tight Lines Fly Fishing Shop up in Pere, Wisconsin. A good friend of mine introduced me to the sport of fly fishing, along with our good friend Sam Tion. Sam is really responsible for introducing myself to Tim, and our friendships is just growing. But he's got this amazing story. Fly fishing is one of those things that I like because I can just be out in a stream and listen to the water running and the bugs and the birds and everything else. It's amazing to me to just be able to get out and relax. But the shop itself and the experiences Tim has are absolutely incredible.
Well, we had one of those experiences doing this podcast. First of all, this is the first time the Newsa-Cast has ever gone remote, so we were super excited to bring our little bit of equipment up to Tim's fly fishing shop. I have never been to a fly fishing shop before. We've never done a podcast remote before, so it was an exciting new day for us. And you walk into Tim's. I didn't know what to expect at a fly fishing shop. I've seen pictures, so I'm certainly expecting to see flies, but first thing I do is I see guitars, I hear bluegrass music, I see the Steal Your Face Grateful Dead logo on a really, really cool t-shirt. I didn't even say hi to Tim. I actually beeline right for that shirt. But we had a heck of a time, and to learn about what Tim does, the guy was a banker. He left that world to become a fly fishing guide, and to hear that story, to see and understand the success of this shop. 22 years running fly shop in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Let's go.
It's awesome. You guys are going to love this episode. You're going to learn a little bit about Tim and, local business, shop local, and just enjoy Tim's affection for the sport and for the outdoors and the Menomonie River Coalition as well.
You'll hear the excitement, I'm sure, in this. We were sitting in Tim's office. The audio quality might not be 100% perfect, but the conversation is certainly 100% perfect. I had so much fun. I learned so much. And just to hear Tim's story, you guys are all going to enjoy this. It's fantastic.
Welcome, Newsa-Cast listeners. We have a special guest to myself. This is a close personal friend, and we're going to hear his story, his journey. So welcome, Tim.
Well, thank you guys very much for having me today. This is fun.
This is going to be a blast. I am super excited.
Oh my gosh, are we ever? First time in a fly fishing shop for me. I walked into a music shop. I was attracted to a Grateful Dead shirt, and we ended up talking fly fishing later. But
that's it.
I love this place.
Talk music and fishing. Yeah, it is one of those things. Like it is a fly fishing store, which in the Midwest is unique in itself, because kind of a funny story. There's 6 or 7 designated fly fishing only stores in the entire state of Wisconsin. Montana has, I think, through our trade organizations, like 1,360,000 some. It's a ridiculous amount of fly fishing stores because it's just cultural. So this is kind of like a barber shop here. In the fishing community, we've been kind of looked at as like the fishing barber shop.
In the hour or two that we've been here, we've hung out with Tim for a bit. It is. I can see that where people just come in, hang out, shoot the breeze for a bit, maybe buy something and take off.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just kind of part of the deal. It's not an Amazon. It's not a Walmart. It's just a weird fly fishing store.
And a place to talk guitars maybe for a half hour or two, right?
Yeah, Dave, our store manager, is an incredibly talented guitar builder. He's modest, but you've seen it touched.
It's incredible. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. And it's funny, you brought up the Montana, and I know you've told me this in the past. It's almost like things are flipped. The population of Wisconsin is equal to the fly fishing shops, and the fly fishing shops are equal to the population.
Funny, yeah.
Yeah.
We get that all the time, we were just discussing it a little while ago, but it's such a cultural thing, the fly fishing component of the fishing world. The fishing world in the state of Wisconsin is massive. But we grow up in a lake culture here. This is big boats, the Bay of Green Bay, or maybe that family cabin, up on the lake. So we get people all the time that come in and kind of look around like, so just fly fishing, huh? And then they're kind. I mean, they're trying to be nice. They're like, so how long you guys been in business? Best of luck. And they tell them 22 years. Like, oh my God.
The best part is, was it during COVID when you were on WIXX? No. Which one was it? I can't remember. But you were of the shops that people wanted to.
Oh my gosh, that was actually was that a podcast from some guys in the Valley?
It was, I think.
I can't remember their name. It's a big deal, though.
Yeah, but
they said, like, I don't want to cut you off here, Tosh, but they had said, like, places during COVID that you would rob.
Yes.
In tight lines, fly fishing was like, and it was funny because they're like, so what you're going to do is you're going to steal this old man's dream.
Right. That's exactly
So
it.
they beat him down. They're like, can't rob a little family business like
It was
that.
hilarious. It was awesome. Well, we're at this point. We might as well just talk a little bit about the shop. All right. You guys have been around for 22
Yes, sir.
years.
22 years. Yeah.
Yeah. How did that start?
A foolish decision, probably. No, it was kind of funny because I look back on that and I was 27 or something. And, I had like a real job and, kind of doing this whole deal. And looking back on it, thought this would be a great idea. And I mean, it turned out to be a great idea, but thinking about it now, what a scary, dumb decision. But
Yeah.
do a lot of hard work and stuff. It's all worked out in 22 years. And, we're still doing it. Everything from guides and classes and the retail store, the online store, teaching people the art of fly fishing and just being part of people's lives in a different level. So 22 years already.
So fly fishing, I mean, did you grow up with fly fishing? How did this become a dream?
That's a great question, Joe, because I think I grew up fishing and, some kids would retaliate from their parents with, I'm going to buy a motorcycle or I'm drinking underage or something. Like Bart, my cousin, and I became fly fishermen. It was oh my God, they're fly fishermen now. We only fish with worms. So, I mean, when we were really young, my grandma had a cabin up north and we would start to just bring these fly rods up, not knowing what we're really doing. And it just blew up. We just absolutely loved it. So we started tying flies and, it just became part of who I am, became part of my being. And it just kept going and going. It eventually landed me out west guiding and kind of got my start professionally in it. So
Kids being kids, right?
being kids, that's it. Yep.
Gotta love it.
When you and Bart were young, what were you fishing for? Anything, everything?
I think at first, everybody wants to try to catch trout on a fly,
Right.
but it's hard in Wisconsin to learn how to catch trout on a fly. So we were just happy catching anything that would bite it.
That's awesome. So you grew up in this area. You went to school.
I went to high school.
Yeah,
So this was kind of, I'll give you the backstory if we have time for that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think I was a bit of a disappointment to my parents when I decided to take this path. I actually went to NWTC out of high school, not really knowing what I wanted to do, and went to marketing, or I don't know, but I just knew that it coincided with certain hatches that I should be fishing. So I couldn't even patch it together in a technical college. I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the motivation to do it. So I worked in a bike shop, ran a ski shop for years. My good friends, still my very good friends, Neller, started their snowboard shop for me. And then eventually started to work in a bank because I had to do something. I grew up in a family you got to have a purpose. It's just, a focus. This is what you got to do. So I worked in the bank as a teller, and I moved up the ranks pretty quickly to lending and even a little bit of business lending and things like that. And I absolutely hated it. It's kind of like anybody who's had that job that you just punch the clock, I hated it. And one day, after about 3 years of working there, I went into my banking manager's office and I said, I'm going to be leaving. She said, "Oh no, you're going to give your 2 weeks notice." I said, "No, I'm leaving right now." And I went and I packed my truck and I had really no plans, and I drove to Big Sky, Montana that day and just was going to figure out it was going to be bartending or whatever I had to do, patch fences, to just be there and just to get to fish. So that's kind of how it all started. So that's where the disappointment as a child. We're all dads.
Yeah,
you can understand.
absolutely.
Well, this is a terrible idea.
Right.
You're 27 years old at this point?
No, at that point I was 27 when we opened the shop.
I got you. Okay.
So I was probably 23.
Okay.
22.
Yeah.
You know, I was probably 23.
You literally, and we talk about parents. I mean, my oldest is getting real close to that age. And you wonder, what are they going to do? And at 23, dude, I want to be, this is what I want. This is my calling. I'm going after it. And it's working.
It is, Joe, but there wasn't really a calling at that point. It was just, I'm leaving. I didn't know it was calling.
Yeah.
I just knew I wanted to go fishing.
Right. Right.
And it basically what ended up happening, I landed at the 320 Ranch in Big Sky, Montana, full working ranch. And I was going to just sling beers and wash dishes or whatever I had to do. But they had a pond on the ranch. It was a big guest ranch. And they had stocked this pond with big rainbows. And I was out there casting one day, and a gentleman by the name of J.D. Bigman, who owned Wild Trout Outfitters, saw me casting. And I said, hey, would you be interested in teaching casting lessons to some of the guests? So it kind of started like that. We became friends. He said, hey, would you be willing to guide? Well, I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together at that point, fellas. So he let me tie flies in his shop, and he paid for my guide's license, out-of-state guide's license, and he paid for my first aid CPR and wilderness first aid to get me on my tied flies to do that. And that's kind of how it all started.
It's amazing.
So, yeah, I just kind of lucked into it with really good people that kind of helped me along the way.
That's just incredible. I love that. I love that. So you're in Montana. You're doing that. Do you kind of see the vision then? I mean, do you understand that maybe I want to be a guide? Kind of. How are you learning? Being a guide is so fascinating to me.
I had guided here, also before moving out there, kind of part time and kind of patching it together. And then when I was out there, it was full time guiding. But I always thought, Wisconsin could use a fly fishing store. I've always longed for that Western feel of you're in a fly shop out west. You've been in them before, Tosh. It's like kind of a thing. So that was going to be my ultimate goal, even though it was kind of a pipe dream to do that.
Right.
And along the way, while I was out there, I met this beautiful young 19-year-old girl who's 5 years younger than me. And we had made an arrangement that if she booked me as a guide to the ranch, I would buy her dinner each night.
Yeah.
And now, August 8th, we celebrate 25 years of marriage.
That's amazing. And congratulations. That's awesome.
Yes.
I will say her father was unimpressed with me. However. Andy, I love you. I've won by attrition.
Yes, yes.
Well, we have a running theme already of being unimpressed with things. So that's awesome. And Sarah's amazing. So big shout out to Sarah, by the way, as well. Hope you're doing well. Always love seeing her.
Yep.
So that's a cool story. Just thinking back to, we talk about youth and youth sports.
Yeah.
Somebody trusting in you.
Yeah.
That's an incredible feeling and an incredible opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. And fly fishing in Montana, we're here in Northeast Wisconsin. It's a whole nother beast. Yeah. I just went out and tried to do it myself with my boys when we were on the Yellowstone. It's a little bit different than Wisconsin. It was fun though.
It is. It's always fun.
Yeah. And when we were out there, Tim's former shop manager, Charlie, he and my oldest son, Will, got together and they tied flies. And Will was the first one to catch one on one of the flies he tied, which was incredible as well.
That's awesome. It's just full circle when that happens. That's the pieces parts. So
you spend about 4 or 5 years out there?
Just a handful of seasons out there and met Sarah. And she was kind of jumping around, a couple different schools. And, it was just one of those deals. She moved back to Wisconsin while I ran a snowboard shop. I was doing that and then guiding in the off season, running the snowboard shop. And we had she moved here, finished her undergrad here, and we had a little nest egg that we were going to buy a house. We were married. We were going to buy a house. And she said, we don't need to buy a house yet. And that's what we did. We opened the fly shop. So that was kind of how it works. Yeah. And 22 years later.
And the fly shop first existed downtown De Pere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right by St. Norbert College was our first location. And they did the construction between the east and west De Pere bridges that would have put me out of business. So the shout out to Sarah and how that worked was we had finally purchased, after the shop, our first little tiny house on Grant Street. Very excited. We have our first home. And then we realized that we would be out of business if I kept the fly shop in that location. So we purchased the building that we're in here, sold our home, and she decided it would be just fine to live upstairs for another 5 years.
Yeah.
At the fly shop. So
Nice.
I got a good one.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do. And Josh, we should mention we're actually in the fly shop. First time on the road for the Newsa-Cast recording. So
Yeah.
we've been hanging out with Tim in the fly shop.
This is great. Yeah, you guys popped in. So we've been fly shopping all afternoon or all morning.
Yes.
It's been fantastic. This is a common occurrence for me, but at first for Joe.
Yes.
So
Yes, I'm loving this. I think the Grateful Dead wrote a song about this, didn't they?
I believe so.
Yeah, I believe so too. So talk more about a guide. What group of guys want to get together and go fishing with you? I mean, is that how does it work? So walk me through it from start to finish.
Sure. Well, what we offer is like the guides themselves have a special skill set in a certain area in our sport. Like we've been known for, in the Midwest, we've been known for fishing for smallmouth bass on a fly, which actually is, I don't want to say it's a newer thing, but in the last 15 years, it's gained a lot of traction. And our guides have gotten a bunch of national recognition for what they do out there on the rivers. But a guide trip can be anything, Joe. It could be something from, I have a vast amount of fly fishing experience and want to see this through the guide's eyes, learn some new techniques, all the way to, I have no experience and want to just learn how to do this.
Right.
The guides are kind of their mentors through the day and kind of help them along on their path. And the beautiful thing about the guiding component is, it's not just a trip. It's not just a fishing trip, like maybe a charter boat trip where you just troll all day and drink beers. This is kind of one of those things where you become really close with your clients. Some of my clients I've guided for 22, 23 years already.
Sure.
So they're like family.
Yeah. Oh,
So yeah, it's a great life.
what makes a good guide? I mean, I've experienced for sure, but what makes a good guide?
That's a really, really good question, because a good guide is patient no matter what, keeps his inside voice inside. As teachers, you understand.
Mhm.
There's probably some of those times you're like, oh, said it out loud.
Yep.
So, I think patience, understanding the river and the fishing and everything else, but it's really just about like, how does he interact with the customers? Do they want to come back because they had a great day? Not necessarily because the fishing was extraordinary, but they came back because like they just had a great time.
Right.
And that's what we do. That's what Tight Lines does, or tries to.
Yeah. Yeah. And your guides are absolutely amazing. Every single one of them are fantastic.
Appreciate that.
And yeah, I've got to experience it, and it's a blast. Absolutely a blast, especially when Tim, Skypes fish from you because you're too slow, which I am.
This is different because there's a difference between guiding and fishing. Like if I'm guiding, I would never do that. But if I'm fishing with you, I'm going to catch all of them in front of you. And I apologize for that.
It was fun. It was a blast, absolute blast. So when you're thinking, when you got into guiding, you and Bart were fishing, little kids, and going through, I mean, how did that, who were you guiding through here in Wisconsin before you?
Well, I mean, that was the tough part because we didn't have a reputation, or you don't have a name. And in the state of Wisconsin, it's a really hard profession to get into. You can't just put your shingle out there and be like, I'm a fly fishing guide and people are going to flock here and come and fish with me.
Absolutely.
So it was basically like family, friends and stuff that knew, that you were a fishy guy, or that you had a certain expertise in a certain watershed or something. And then there was an old shop here, Bob's Bait and Tackle, years ago, that would refer some of those guys to us, that kind of thing. But until we had the shop, or until we worked through a shop out west, that's kind of how it starts. Now, there are guide schools that are out there. There's Yellow Dog and a couple other companies run these 2-week guide schools, but really hard to train a guide in 2 weeks to become like a guide. So,
somebody you trust too.
yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, absolutely.
Because that's a big component of it for you, because you have these guys underneath you who are representing your shop.
Yep.
And if they're not good, clients are going to say they're not good, and that word of mouth is going to
That's it.
spread as well. So
That's it. Every one of the guys that works for us is like a brother. I mean, you've met all of them. Joe, you haven't met them, but like it's a brotherhood because we all live up north together.
Sure.
Old man frat house now.
that's exactly what I told Joe.
Except the difference is like we used to go to bed at like 1:30. Now it's like, my God, it's 5 after 9. Turn in. So, but yeah, I mean, the guides are representatives of what we do. That's true.
How long have your guides been with you currently?
That's a good question, an excellent point. Like Bart has been with us for 23 years since we started guiding. Nate's been with me for 17 years. Gavin's been with me for 7 or 9 years. We just lost a couple of them because they had families, and but most of them. Gabe has been with me for now, I think 5 years on the river already.
And he worked in the shop before that.
Yep. Started when he was 15 years old in the shop. My son, so that's a really cool thing because these guides are not one summer guides. They've been with me for years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I'm thinking an important part of being a good guide, having a successful business, is a clean river. And I know that that's important to you, the Menomonie River Coalition. That's, I suppose, in some sense, the lifeline of your business is making sure that river.
It is, Joe. And I appreciate you bringing that up because it's really what it's about. And it's about clean water and everything else. And of course, the health of our smallmouth bass and the fishery. But it goes deeper than that. Like from a business standpoint, if somebody told me right now that this proposed mine that I'll talk about in just a second weren't going to be could be vanished if I stopped guiding, I would stop guiding on it tomorrow. So it's the importance of the river. But for your listeners, there's a proposed mine on the Menomonie River. It's on the Michigan side, and it's 150 feet from the banks of the river itself. It's a very short distance, and it is a full open pit sulfide mine of heavy metals. I believe zinc, copper, gold. And the scary part is it will be 2.5 to 3 times the size of an open pit mine of Lambeau Field, twice the depth, twice the height of 2 Statue of Liberties on top of one another, and that will be a full open pit sulfide mine. The thing that people don't understand is not only could it just poison the river, which is devastating because we need clean water, but this dumps directly into the Bay of Green Bay and Lake Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in a really sticky situation with it because border river between Wisconsin and Michigan, we share reciprocity on everything else from fishing licenses, boat access, and everything. However, as a state of Wisconsin resident, I have no say on what happens because the mine's on the Michigan side.
Interesting, yeah.
So it's been put onto the 10 most endangered rivers in North America, and it's a real thing. And the mine company, I know we need mines. I'm not saying that that's not a thing. It's just a really bad place for this one.
Right.
We're fighting it as we can.
And what type of, when you're fighting, what type of work are you doing? What is there a place people can go and support it? What can people do?
Oh, absolutely, Joe. There's a grassroots organization called the Coalition to Save the Menomonie River, and it's a group of the hardest working retired people. I mean, they've physically shut down Aquila, the first mining company, kind of single-handedly shut the first part of this down before they sold their mining rights. So jointheriver.org, I believe, or the coalition. I'll have to look. I got to look this up here. But it's Coalition to Save the Menomonie River. You'll be able to find them on Instagram, Facebook, online. Donate once, because this isn't a fishing problem that we have. This is a clean water problem that we have.
Right.
And 10 most endangered rivers in North America.
I mean, when you look at the people who are behind helping save this river, I mean, we're talking like Patagonia, a great company, supports all kinds of environmental issues.
Yeah.
They've donated money to help save this.
They have. There have been a handful of enormous companies who've come forward and recognize like what a disaster this potentially could be. And again, this doesn't just affect these people who live on the river. It's already affected them through the mining company buying all the land up and everything else. And obviously if they poison the river, but like these people in Michigan and everywhere else that's surrounded by Lake Michigan, like we're all affected.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, it needs to be brought to attention. So I appreciate you guys talking about that.
That's huge. Being an environmental science and earth science teacher, we've talked about this.
Yes.
And, it also brings to a point of your passion for just the environment as well. And it's not just being a guide and being a fisherman, being an outdoorsman. It's just common sense.
It's common sense. It's so well said. It's so well said because it's really a simple thing. Like this is just a bad idea.
Yeah.
And one thing that's been really great about having this fly shop that you guys have let me share is it has given me a platform because we have exposure in the fishing community. We do get some national exposure from some different TV shows and things like that. It's allowed me to have a platform to explain what we just talked about. Give the explanation of what this is, a non-political, non-anything. Just this is what could happen, and this is what it is. So,
when is the mine scheduled to be built, or are they still in the process of purchasing the land? Or
well, that's a really good question, Joe. They have purchased a bunch of land, and the first company to do it was called Aquila. It's a Canadian mining company that came here. They've never actually built a mine. I mean, like. This was their first foray. They had some money, but the coalition shut them down. Their stocks were trading at like 3 cents, but they had sold the mining rights to another company who has it right now. Now, fortunately, they're showing poor earnings for the last X amount of quarters, so they're not actually moving forward on any of the projects now. But like, there's a lot of gold, there's a lot of copper. There's a lot of these minerals in there, but as long as they're in there, we're going to be fighting it. So right now, it's delay. It's like fight, delay, build awareness, get people to understand what it is.
Right.
It's been years.
No, I appreciate you sharing it. It happens 100 miles away from me. I don't even realize what's going on.
That's not an uncommon story. Yeah, I've got people who live on the river like, what? What's happening?
And this might be a dumb question, but did they just discover the gold, or how did that? Like, is there always? Obviously, there's always been gold there, I guess. But
I think geologically, like that portion, Tosh, you could speak on this a bunch, but like geologically, that portion of the state has a lot of those types of minerals.
Yeah, it's stacked. Absolutely.
Yeah. I remember years ago when I first started guiding up there were planes coming over with different what appeared to be telemetry on it. Like, didn't know what was going on, but I'm sure those were some of the initial stages of location. So
no, we'll definitely follow that story, and we'll stay in touch on that. That's an important issue for sure.
And Tim's mentions a little bit of his platforms. You, because of what you do, have been lucky enough you've been on the Meat Eater, and a video where they came and you turned a fishing boat into a fly boat.
We did. Yeah. That was scary.
That was awesome.
Very scary. We've shot a lot of TV shows in the past through this business, but our friends at Meat Eater wanted to shed light on this mine. And those of your listeners that don't know what Meat Eater is, it's Steve Ranella and a group, and it's this enormous hunting fishing group that's very, very powerful. But they had a show called Das Boat, where Das Boat, they would find this old garbagey fishing boat, and we had to fancy it up enough to fly fish on your fishery and do that. But the whole show was on, what about this mine, this fishery? How do we protect this? So yeah, that shined a lot of light on the river, and it was a big deal for the coalition.
Yeah, and you actually fixed up the boat right here in the shop.
We did,
which is cool as well.
We fixed it here, and like I said, I've shot a lot of TV shows, but I've never shot one where like there were 3 cameramen, a full audio dude, the producer. I'm like, I'm just a fly fisherman. It's scaring me.
Yeah, but that was a great point, though. It shed a tremendous amount of light on the situation and was a huge help.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And a lot of it is like podcasts like what you guys are doing, talking about, is a lot of it's just awareness. Like, let people know, like you said, Joe, like, no idea. It's not uncommon.
This, I guess we can call it a job, but has taken you to many different places. I remember when I first met you through Sam, our good friend Sam Tion. Shout out to Sam. You were heading to Cuba.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you were fly fishing for tarpon.
Yep. That was a tagging program that we got to do that. But yeah, the job has been kind of neat. We've had an international travel business, so we've gotten to take and assemble groups around the world, from Bolivia to the Amazon, Guyana, Cuba, Bahamas, Belize, Argentina, New Zealand. Like, we've gotten to travel the world fishing for weird stuff.
And that also has led you to be an ambassador to several companies as well.
Yeah. Yep. Some of the different companies, seek a handful of guys out, that maybe have an expertise in a certain area and stuff. So yeah, that's been kind of handy, because our friends at Sawyer Oars and High folks, taking good care of us, mostly because, like, I don't want to boast, but, like, our guides were some of the first guides to really guide smallmouth bass, out of drift boats, especially in the Midwest.
Right.
So they were kind of pioneers in that. And we even wrote a book.
Yes.
And, that had a bunch of traction.
I didn't get to that yet. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this, I'm going to shout out Sawyer Oars, but I've seen those oars that they sent you, and they're like works of art. Mm-hmm. They're beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Oh yeah, they're gorgeous.
I'd be afraid to put them in the water.
I am every year when they're a brand new pair, but then you just get one little scuff on it. It's like, okay, they're tools. They're still tools. So,
well, let's talk about your book for a little bit too here. How did that come about? How did you decide, hey, I'm going to write a book?
Actually, somebody else said, hey, you should write a book.
There you go.
One of our good friends, Dave Karzinski, I mean, he's written other books, and he teaches English. I think he's in Michigan, and he said, "Boy, you guys have literally thousands and thousands and thousands of days of smallmouth knowledge to really talk about writing a book." So we got together, and he and I decided to do that project. And it's pretty funny, because from a guy who couldn't make it through a semester at a technical college, my mom's like, my son wrote a book. So, but yeah, the book is in its fourth printing right now. It's called Smallmouth Modern Fly Fishing Methods, Tactics, and Techniques. And it kind of just talks about fly fishing for smallmouth bass, and all of that information. Even though I'm one of the authors on the book, really it's a culmination of our guides. This is a think tank of all of the best in the business who did this with us. So it's not my book, it's our book.
That's true. That's a good point. It is a fantastic book. I've read it. I've got my autographed copy. Another avenue that Tim has had, we mentioned the podcast he's been on. We mentioned the Meat Eater episode of Das Boat, but you've also were in a DVD on fly fishing in the Midwest.
Did a bunch of that stuff. Yeah, Summer Haze. Yeah, you know the story about the DVD. See,
so I had to bring it up
to your listeners. So this is a setup. I'm being set up right now by Tom. So our very good friend Sam Tion. I asked him, we were shooting this video with Robert Thompson called Summer Haze. It's all on Midwest warm water fly fishing. It's a beautiful DVD. It covers smallmouth, and they're also covering muskies. And we had one day where the weather was going to be really cold. It's not going to be good smallmouth fishing to the cameraman. And I said, I've got a place, like maybe we can get a couple of muskies, we'll give her a shot. It's a place we have to take a raft, and it's a lot of work. You've been there. It's a lot of effort to do this. So I call up her buddy Sam. Sam's like, yeah, I'll come help out, row the boat, do some fishing. Well, that day when we shot that video, those of you that aren't familiar with the muskie, they call it the fish of 10,000 casts, because you just don't catch them. I mean, it's in fly fishing for them only decreases your odds exponentially. Anyhow, we were fishing in the first 5 minutes of the trip. Muskie that was like over 40 inches eats my fly under the boat, and like I miss him immediately. And the cameraman's like, well, this is cool. We went through that day, and I think we moved, for those of you who muskie fish know that this is a big number, but I think we moved like 14 or 15 muskies that day, which I didn't catch any of. I missed all of them. Sam caught one, and in the end of that video, I'm just yelling at him. I was talking about patience and being patient with customers. There's a difference between patience with customers and patience with just like flat out friends.
Yeah.
You know,
the inner voice came out.
The inner voice came out, and like so Sam still holds it over me. Like all you do is yell when we fish. Summer haze, end of the video, me yelling at Sam, even though he caught all of the fish.
And also some great music by Michigan Rattlers.
Yes, Michigan Rattlers and Old Heavy Hands.
Old Heavy Hands, yeah. Some
Mm-hmm.
excellent music by both of those bands. So
Michigan, you know, be at least decent at fly. You look at other sports, you know, players that all her taste of fly. So it's all about casting. About what makes a good fly fisherman, and then just a guy like me, it just can start for the first time. How long does it take? You probably never master it.
You never master it, but like it's not that hard. Like I think that the hardest hurdle for anybody is just fly casting. Like no matter how much fishing experience you have with conventional tackle, fly fishing has nothing to do with that. Like it's a different rhythm and an understanding. But you can hire. Pam teaches casting lessons here, like an hour-long casting lesson, get you on track. If you can learn to cast, like you can come in here, we'll tell you what flies to use. It's not like people who say this is like golf or this is something like, it's nothing like golf. You know, like you can become an adequate fly angler at a pretty fast pace if you're willing to listen, learn. Million YouTube videos out there. We have a YouTube channel with like classes and everything on there. But it's not hard. So it's not hard. Yeah, it's really not hard. There's easy steps to it.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So for the people who don't know fly fishing, what's one of the advantages to fly fishing compared to on an old spin reel? Yeah. What's the advantage? What's the difference? Or
well, I think the fly fishing thing is kind of unique in a standpoint of, you know how some guys choose to deer hunt with a gun and then some guys choose to deer hunt with a bow and arrow. And it's not because the effectiveness of the bow and arrow is greater. It's because it's the path. It's the journey. Fly fishing is that. So each of us may have a little bit of that in us, you know, so that's where the fly fishing part comes in. The advantage of fly fishing is with a regular rod and reel, you're using the weight of that rod and reel to cast the line. So the weight of the lures would cast the line. In fly fishing, you're using a thicker line. So the line is what you're casting. You can cast an absolute weightless object to a fish, fly fishing, but you can't do the same thing with that. The other thing about fly fishing that is the biggest appeal is it is true hand-to-hand combat with that fish. When you are connected with a conventional rod, be a spinning rod, a bait caster, or whatever else, you have that mechanical reel winding it in. When the fish bites, the drag works, and you're working off of a machine. When you're fly fishing, you're physically holding that fly line connected to that fish. You know what I mean? It's really hard to explain until you taste it, you see it. So it's a different deal.
yeah, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one thing I have enjoyed since I've started doing it is just the solitude as well.
Yeah.
You know, if you're trout fishing, you might be on a stream by yourself, hearing nature around you, watching bugs come out of the water. It's surreal. It's really cool.
And I think that's what a lot of people during COVID, there was a big boom in a lot of outdoor sports, from boating to, you guys have seen it, you know, and everything, even our own purchasing. Like I found myself like, maybe we need an RV. But fly fishing, we saw a lot of that where people started to just, you know, kind of get into this. Like this might be my jam. Just I like being alone a little bit.
That brings up a good point. COVID in the shop. It is a whole new experience for you.
Whew. Yeah, I did learn that like I have the best customers on the planet because during COVID, state of Wisconsin here, we were shut down. Was it? How, do you guys remember what the time frame was? Was it 2 months or 3 months? It was substantial. Yeah. But I was in the shop myself and, working off of social media and like trying to drum up business however we could. But fortunately, our website at tightlinesflyshop.com has an online store and we had an outside pickup already set up on it. So that was serendipitous that had happened. But one thing that I realized, and I've talked about this in a couple different podcasts, I've talked about this to a bunch of customers, is like you realized like how great of a family in my customers that I have, because I was in here by myself and I don't think in those 3 months there was not a day that went by like a 6-pack of beer didn't show up outside every day. Yep. Like every single day. My daughter was in here one day and this guy is knocking on the window and he gets to my daughter because she was helping in here, said, "I need a shirt." She's like, "What shirt?" He's like, "A large. I don't care." Like they just wanted to support us. So it's such a weird business because I get that out of it. I'm not selling insurance or cars or like selling fun, and these people have become my best friends.
That's awesome. In this episode, we also interviewed Ryan Marx and talked about the outdoor clubs in the high schools.
Oh, that's excellent.
And those are a big, huge piece to keep those kids outside and doing something and getting passionate about the environment and the world they live in. So,
like Ryan said, here in the interview, I mean, they're all equipment just to for these kids to have that experience.
Yeah.
How great would it be for a kid in high school to experience fly fishing?
Absolutely.
It's a lifelong love for the kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen some of that in some high schools, like some fly tying classes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some of the teachers that have kind of taken that on themselves and showed some of these kids. And my son Pere he's involved with the youth archery stuff. And it's really cool to see that stuff in schools. It's important.
You talked a little bit about, we've talked about your guides. How many guide trips a summer do you run through the shop?
Well, because of a couple of guys getting married and having children, they've really put a wrench into my whole business. This growing up, it's just complete shenanigans. But typically we're running like 7 or 8 guides a summer. We would do anywhere between 600 and 800 smallmouth trips a year. I think the shop this year, the beginning end, we didn't have much, but the shop, we've done over 12,000 smallmouth trips since we've been open. So it's a lot of boat rides right there.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about having a small business like this.
Yep.
I've got our store manager, we've got our guys, and we have other staff members that help out here. But like, we juggle a lot of balls and plates, spin a lot of plates. Like I do the social media stuff, you do the newsletter stuff, you do all that stuff. But the social media part is so important. It keeps us in touch with those customers, with those friends. So, and you can find us at Tightlines Fly Fishing Company or Tightlines Fly Fishing Co. WI on Instagram and follow us. You can kind of see the adventures that we go on and what we do, because we also have a travel business and we do some unique, weird stuff too.
Well, you know what? This has been fantastic. I am so excited to get your story out. I mean, your story's out there, but it's exciting for us to get your story out on our little podcast. And just spending some time with us has been incredible. And a selfish standpoint, it's always good to see you.
It's awful good. It's great to meet you, Joe.
Oh my gosh, likewise.
This has been spectacular.
He's got a great shop here. Like I said, you want to touch base, look up Tightlines, and check out their store, support local, and support the Menomonie River for sure. And thank you very much. It's been a blast.
Can't thank you guys enough. This was a lot of fun, fellas. So
likewise.
Thanks for letting me share my story.
Thank you for sharing.
We got a great throwback this week. We're going to throw it to 2013. We had one of the earliest manifestations of the most dominating closer in baseball history, and that's Goose Gossage. 100-mile-per-hour fastball. Just he had that gruff beard, and just like you didn't want to see him on the mound.
I mean, is there a better throwback candidate for the outdoor fly fishing episode than Goose Gossage?
Yeah. Grew up in Colorado.
Absolutely.
Lives in Colorado.
Yeah.
Hunts with his kids, with his sons, and is a huge sponsor of youth sports in Colorado Springs area.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a huge backer of them, and is I had forgotten this, Tosh. Remember, this was a little bit before our time, but he was an Appleton Fox. He played a year here in Appleton in his minor league career. I think they were a Class D back in those days. But yeah, Richard Goose Gossage came through Appleton on his way to, well, an outstanding major league career. I mean, most of us remember him. I mean, certainly some of those Yankee teams. I mean, it just you're right, that gruff face, that close in of. I mean, that's when relievers were relievers, right? I mean, I still remember the Rolaids relief of the, relief man of the year, and the firefighting helmet that they get for the trophy. And
he would throw 3 innings at a time.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
And he talks about that. You're right. And I remember when he was here, we had dinner. Usually the way the Red Smith Banquet is set up, obviously, it's here in January, so the weather isn't always the greatest. So we'd try to get the folks in on Monday night. So we're sure to be here for the show. So we'd have dinner on Monday, and we were sitting down with Goose Gossage, and he was specifically talking about in this day and age, and this was this is 10 years ago he's telling this story, but kind of the same thing. The way baseball is set up right now, you've got to specialize, right? They'll come in, they'll face a lefty and go out. Goose is firing him. He's going 3 full innings. He's coming in the 7th inning, and he's shutting that game down for 3 innings. I mean, can you imagine that now?
Absolutely. Hey, and just a little reminder as we throw back to this throwback, if you like these throwbacks from any of our episodes, you can catch the full throwback on our YouTube channel.
Absolutely, and it really, really helps. I know everybody begs and pleads for likes and subscribes and all those clicks. It actually does make a big difference. And for us, it makes a big difference. I mean, we're a nonprofit. All our proceeds go back to youth sports, just like what Goose Gossage is doing. So those views, those likes, those subscriptions, they honestly, they really help. So if you don't mind doing that and sharing this podcast with all your friends, it only helps our community. So we appreciate it. We're going to thank you in advance for doing that.
Red Smith Sports Awards. Banquet Throwback.
The Red Smith Award, of course, goes to someone who has made some unique contributions to sport in Wisconsin, and also epitomizes the great values that Red Smith exhibited.
Let's give a Red Smith welcome.
Well, thank you, Roland. I can't think of a better guy to have this great award presented to me. I started out, I grew up out in Colorado, and all I wanted to do, Mickey Mantle was my favorite player, my idol growing up, and I couldn't imagine getting a guy out like Mickey Mantle or all these great players that I had idolized growing up as a kid out there. And all I know is when I signed that contract, it was the first time I knew that I needed an agent. They offered me $5,000 and I held out for $8,000. So, it was never about the money. At that time, I would have paid them $8,000 if I could have gotten it and paid them to play. But, I promised myself that day, my father had passed away when I was a junior in high school. And, he was the guy that, threw his arm out. He was a great athlete growing up, and he threw his arm out, and so he never really got the opportunity, but he always would tell me, hey, Rick, he says, you're going to play in the big leagues someday. And I'd say, oh, Dad, please don't say that. You know, I just couldn't even imagine. You know, I thought Mickey Mantle, who was my, as I said before, my idol, I thought these guys were like cartoon characters. They were fictitious. They really didn't even exist. And the closest I ever got to a Major League Baseball game was the game of the week with Dizzy Dean and Pee Wee Reese, if we all remember that. And that opportunity came to me that day. I ran in the house. I had gotten a job upon graduating out of high school. I didn't know if I was going to get drafted by a professional baseball team or not. And I came running in the house that day and I said, Mom, I got a job. I said, up at the park where I grew up playing my youth baseball, coaching the kids that summer. And I was so happy. And I said, Mom, I got a job, you know. And she said, well, this gentleman over here has a job for you too. And I had my back to him. I didn't even know he was there. And I turned around and there was the scout, Bill Kimball from North Platte, Nebraska, who had been scouting me unknown, you know, I didn't know that he had been scouting me. And right then and there, you know, when I signed that contract, started my professional career. And I was a scared kid. I had never been out of the state of Colorado, and I got on a plane, ended up signing that contract, got on the plane. They sent me to Sarasota, Florida in June of 1970. And I got on that plane, and when I got to Tampa, Florida, it was about 11:30 at night, and it was June. And we all know how hot June is in Florida. And Colorado, we don't have much humidity. I'd never experienced that before in my life. And I got halfway down the stairs. It was when we didn't even have jetways, and they rolled those stairs up to the plane, and we got off, and we were deplaning, and I got halfway down. I came out the door of the plane, and wow, this blast of heat hit me and almost knocked me down. And I said to myself, and I said it out loud, I said, wow, those jets of that plane are hot. And this guy right in front of me stopped, and I almost knocked him down the stairs. And he said, son, he said, those aren't the jets of the plane, I hate to say. He said, welcome to Florida. And that was 11:30 at night, but that was one of the first experiences that I had. I spent a couple of weeks down in Sarasota, Florida. I did very well down there. And guess where I was sent next? To Appleton, Wisconsin. So this was the second stop of a career that I promised myself, hey, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, and all I wanted to do when I started out was put on a big league uniform one time. That's all I really thought about. I thought, man, what must that be like just to put a big league uniform on? And you know, little did I know that I would have the career that I had, but I ran into some great people early on in my career, as Roland Heeman alluded to. Roland was one of those guys. He was the general manager of the White Sox at the time. Chuck Tanner, who was a tough guy. And man, you know, I look back at the greatest teachers that I ever had, and they were the toughest. And I think we'll all agree with that. When we look back, we may not have agreed at the time, but when we look back in hindsight and think about, you know, the people that influenced us, those were the best teachers, were the toughest. And I had Chuck, who, like I said, was very tough. Dick Allen took me under his wing, and it was an education that all the money in the world would not have paid for. He taught me how to pitch from a great hitter's standpoint, and where I had to make those pitches and what pitches were difficult for those hitters to handle. So it was an education that, like I said, I could have had all the money in the world and I couldn't have paid for that. Johnny Sain was the greatest pitching coach that I ever came in contact with, even after that. He was my first pitching coach in the big leagues, and you know, he taught me so much. I had no idea even how to throw a breaking ball. I remember, you know, spinning a curveball in Quad Cities one night, my first time here in 1970. I'd let go of that curveball and it flipped out of my hand and went in their dugout. Well, I think I struck out the next three guys, They didn't want any part of that. But, you know, that was when I first found out that, hey, just a little bit wild's okay. And, you know, I liken my career to a little kid, a 10-year-old kid that goes to Disney World and waits in a 2-hour line and gets on his favorite ride or her favorite ride. And it lasts for, you know, 2 minutes. You know, I got on the greatest ride and it lasted for 22 years. And I still, thank you. I still have to pinch myself that I had the kind of career that I had. The 9 different teams that I played for. The Yankees, you know, I grew up a Yankee fan. My dad and my mom, my whole family were great Yankee fans. You know, growing up in Colorado, we really didn't have any connection to any other ball club. You know, now we have the Colorado Rockies, but back in the day we had minor league baseball. The White Sox were an affiliate of Colorado Springs. And, you know, my mom used to wait on those guys, and she was a waitress, and she loved waiting on those players, and that was really one of her highlights, and she used to always talk about it. And, you know, getting on that best ride and then having it culminated with an election to the Hall of Fame, people go, how come it took so long, 8 years of eligibility to get in the Hall of Fame? I said, hey, you know, the longer you have to wait for something, the sweeter it is. And that was so true in that case. You know, to run into these guys at the juncture in my career, firsts, so many great firsts. It was like being in the right spot at the right time. And, you know, I can't help but think that Appleton had an influence on my career because everybody was so genuine up here, genuine and so friendly. And the people that I stayed with the 2 years that I played here opened their homes up to us. To me and to the rest of the players. And I still have friends today that, you know, Ed Holtz was the general manager of the Foxes. You know, I loved those old ballparks, Rob. You know, the lights were lousy. I'm not quite sure that I'd had the career if I'd been in your stadium, you know, with those new lights and the bright lights and throwing 100 miles an hour. Man, I loved those dark lights in the Midwest League. But, you know, it's just one of those things that it's a storybook career. The friendships that I made up here. I came back when shortly after the new stadium had been built. Goodland Field, I drove by there. Milt took me by there last night, and you know, it just brought back so many great memories. And the Midwest people going up to Milwaukee and playing those great Brewer clubs, and the Yankees, you know, when we came into town, wow, did that become a great rivalry. The Toronto Blue Jays, it was the Beast of the East, you know. Man, that was a great division back then, and man, it was a knockdown, drag out. The parity, everybody was great. And, you know, that was when I really saw how great a team. I played with this 78 Yankees. We won a world championship. I played in 3 World Series, was selected to 9 All-Star teams. Just the things that happened to me. You know, baseball has a great saying in that, you know, baseball is made up of guys that have been humbled and those that soon will be. And, you know, that was told to me at an early age. And another thing that Chuck Tanner really, really emphasized was you. And he would get right in your face, and he had terrible breath. He smoked cigars. And I would even say that if he was sitting right here tonight. But he was a tough guy, and he would get nose to nose with you and look you in the eye. And one of the things that he told me, he said, take care of the fans. And I think that's what we've heard from all these people that have come up here with these different organizations, that the fans, you guys and folks and girls and ladies and boys, and some of us never grow up, but it's all about the fans. And without you guys, we wouldn't have a game of baseball. We wouldn't have a hockey game. We wouldn't have basketball. And it's all because of your support. And, you know, I tell people all the time, I get to talk to a lot of people at different banquets, and baseball, every life's lesson is out there on that baseball field, as well as that football field. And, you know, baseball is a perseverance. You know, I said baseball is the toughest game of all to play. There is nothing, and I don't know if you guys can think of anything, but that you can fail at 7 out of 10 times and be a superstar. I don't think so. We wouldn't have a job if we failed 7 out of 10 times at the things we do for a living. So that just really says it in a nutshell about how really difficult that game of baseball is to play. And it's not all about the wins and losses. I think in youth sports and our kids, I think we put too much emphasis on wins and losses. It's how you play the game. It's not how, if you win, sure, that's a big feather in your cap, but it's how you go about it. And, you know, I was very, very lucky to run into Roland and Chuck and Dick and Johnny and all those other great coaches. And even after my career, that first year, you know, the people that I met and the fans and people that my association with different people around the country, those 9 different teams, the great managers I played for, the great teammates that I had was amazing. And like I said, it was like getting on that best ride at Disney World and lasting for 22 years. And I want to thank all of you here in Appleton, and what a great community you have. Green Bay up the road. Oh my God. Mike and I have something in common football-wise. I'm a Denver Bronco fan. So we're in the same boat. And but we're going to knock the shit out of them next year, okay? So thank you.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, it's time for everybody's favorite. It's the used to be called the Forgotten and Forgetting, and it's even confusing for us, and it was confusing for you guys as well. So we're going to kind of do a little rebrand, and we're going to call it
Forgetting and Forgotten was confusing, Tosh?
It was confusing for me. I was even forgetting what I was forgotten. So we're going to kind of change it a little bit. We're going to rebrand this, Joel, and we're going to call it the Forgotten and Never Forgetting section. So
Yes.
I think it's going to be a little easier to remember, and people can kind of think about, and it's going to be easier for us to keep track of things as well.
It's forgotten and never forgetting, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Let's go.
Do you have a good one to start us off with?
Well, I don't know if it's a good one. It's more of an observation, something here that I'm forgotten. It's forgotten. I really do want to forget this. I don't really understand what's going on, but why are they building so many car washes at like every single corner? I'm just very, very confused. I mean, there's like a car wash for every car almost, isn't there?
There is. Don't you remember when you just used to wash your car in your driveway?
Yes. You know, being a letter carrier, I do stumble across that every once in a great while, but it doesn't happen nearly as much. And that just we should have had this for an old look at new. But do you remember the old octopus car wash down on Richmond Street with a great big octopus up on the roof?
No, that was the where Good Company is now. If I'm not.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering
absolutely right in that parking lot there for sure.
Absolutely. Octopus car wash.
I don't know. I just seems like there was only like 3 car washes back in the day. Now there's as many car washes as Starbucks. So
yeah, well, the club car washes are partially owned by Kansas City Chiefs Travis Kelce.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. So found that out when I was researching what it was. So yeah, interesting stuff.
What is yours, Tosh?
Well, I kind of wanted to forget our dependence on technology. And I was just looking, there's so many concerts now that are requiring people to lock their phone in a box when they go into the show. So they can just experience what these musicians and actors and different things like that are doing and the art of it, instead of holding up their phone so they can get the right picture for a place on their Instagram or their TikTok or things like that. And
no, you're absolutely right. That's what I love about Mile of Music. They make a conscious effort to not use your cell phone. You're right. And maybe I just don't understand, but why can't you use your eyes and your ears and just your soul to bring in the music,
Well,
and listen to it the way it was supposed to be made.
Because that's what you remember. It's not going to be the picture. It's going to be what's in your head. And you're going to remember that, how that song made you feel or the emotions that it brought. And I don't think that a picture or a 10-second video is going to do that. It's what's in your head. And we got to get back to using our head a little bit more.
No, I agree. And I know people get sick of me talking about Phish, but this reminds me of it's along the same lines. Trey, who's the front man for Phish, was telling a story one time. He has this picture in his house. It's them from the back of the stage, them looking out into the crowd. And he said the most amazing thing in that picture, and this was just sometime in the last 10 years, cell phones were very prevalent. So the most amazing thing in that picture was nobody had a cell phone.
Right.
They were just there experiencing the show.
Yeah. And it's funny now, you see a picture and everybody has their phone out and people are like, look at that guy. That's the one person who doesn't have their phone out.
Right.
And I'm like,
yeah, that guy gets made fun of.
Yeah, it should be just the opposite.
Right. Kind of like forgetting and forgotten, right? We can't keep this stuff straight.
Right. So that leads us to the never forgetting. So, Joe, why don't you kick that one off?
Well, I'm never forgetting that this episode for one has been a really, really fun episode. Just for me personally, because I didn't know anything about fly fishing. Like I said before, I'd never been in a fly fishing shop, but I'm never forgetting this day to be able to hang out with Tim and Dave and you having a couple of beers, just talking. We talked about everything, and just it was so much fun. We were just hanging out in a fly fishing shop, shooting the bull, and I can't think of a better thing to never forget in my life than that afternoon. So,
yeah. Joe.
To Tim, cheers, thank you, and you too, Tosh and Dave. That was a blast.
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback with that too. I mean, just spending time with friends. Don't forget those times. I mean, that was great. We talked about everything from the Austin, Texas music scene with Dave, his building of guitars. Which is absolutely incredible. In fact, he got a little tiny shipment of wood while we were sitting there, and to all the amazing things at the shop and our lives and our kids and everything. It was an excellent day.
It really was one we're never forgetting.
Exactly.
Well, with that, Tosh, I think we finally got this episode down. So maybe we'll see what happens here in episode 5. So stay tuned for that one for sure. But we appreciate everybody sticking along with us, and we will see you next Thursday for episode 5 of the Newsa-Cast. Thanks for listening to the Newsa-Cast. We appreciate your support. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do so and tell a friend. A huge thanks to Digstown for all the music in today's episode. Catch a gig or find them on Spotify. Northeastern Wisconsin Sports Advancement is a 501c3 organization. Our mission is to raise money, provide support, and create awareness for youth sports organizations in northeastern Wisconsin. We do this primarily through the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet and the Newsa-Cast. Each year, we give back to the community through 3 initiatives: the Every Kid Plays, the Gives Back Initiative, and scholarships to student athletes.